G'day, mate. And how the bloody hell are you? Welcome to In the Back of My Head podcast, episode 71. It's a weekly creative journal where I ramble on about whatever's in the back of my head, centered around creativity for the most part, trying to get thoughts that are rattling around, get them straightened out, make some sense of it all. And if you get anything out of it, well, that's bloody brilliant. And if you don't, it's not the end of the world, mate. Carry on. Let's go. Speaking of the static, I feel like I'm just coming out of a very particularly busy little section. The things have been going fucking crazy. I've been sitting on a project for a little while, and this one involves other people, and I've spoken in pieces about it over the past few episodes, talking about this project that I need to put out, that I need to market, that I need to release and then get into the ears of people, because it's a musical project. And I've been sitting on it for a little while, and because it involves other people, that involves wrangling. It involves the wrangling of other musicians, it involves the wrangling of a venue, it involves a lot of communication, delicate organizing, a lot of chasing up. And that's just the way that it is. Let me first of all say that's just the way that it is. That to have a band or to put together any sort of collaborative project, it's actually just communication. That's really all it is. That's all that it's about. It's just communication. And you're very lucky when you manage to stumble upon the perfect group of people that, despite all the differences and despite, I'm sure, much frustration, will still manage to pull it all together and finally get something out. Most bands fail. And not because the members themselves are bad, though that could be the case, I suppose, in many cases. But I think about bands in the same way I think about relationships, is that you just gotta test the waters, you just gotta see what happens. Just as many relationships will fall apart upon jet setting around the world, when you finally see them in the light of a baggage claim, then things might go awry. You might not ever be able to look at them the same again. Or when you need to build an itinerary, when you need to build some plans, when you need to make a plan for what are we doing today, what are we actually doing? This goes for friendships as well, it goes for anyone. You might be best friends in the world with someone, and then suddenly you hop on a plane and suddenly it all falls apart, because that's just not how you're supposed to work. That's not the format. Some friendships are destined for only certain situations. There's the idea of a drinking buddy. The idea of one mate that you kind of only really get along with when you're pissed. But fuck if you don't have good conversations when you're pissed. I think that's actually a beautiful thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. To compartmentalize different friendships and different relationships and different musical projects, different collaborative projects. Because each thing is there to do a certain thing. If you go into a band hoping that it's going to be this creative force where you're all equal, making this a beautiful thing, but really it's actually kind of destined just to be a jam band, or just a hangout. It can just be a hangout with your mates. It doesn't actually have to amount to anything. That's also totally fine. There's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of value to be in a space with people where you're just allowed to create freely together. Ooh, that's a tasty little time. That in itself is magical. Maybe if you never get a project finished with that group of people, it was still worth it just for their hangs. And in fact, if you were to try and push it to be a project that is actually going to release a bunch of records and be famous, maybe the members aren't in it for that. There's really something to be said, I think, about all being on the same wavelength when it comes to drive. Making sure that everyone wants the same thing, making sure everyone feels like putting in the right amount of input for the project, but really wanting the same goals. I think that's important. Of course, that is not always possible when you don't know yourself. You don't know what you want. And I've certainly done it, where I've entered into projects where I'm like, yeah, fucking let's go, mate. I'm ready. I'm going to play the bass in this band. I'm speaking about bands that are no longer existing, and the bands that I am playing bass in now, I'm ready. I love it. It's my favorite thing. I want that to be very successful because I want to do it all the time. But there are other projects that I've played bass in that I'm like, yeah, let's go. And then, a little way later down the track, I'm like, shit. No, I'm actually not that interested. And it comes from a place of just wanting to say yes to everything. That's certainly an element to it, But it also came from a place of not really knowing what I was in it for at the time, for that particular project, and for what I was looking for myself. Much like a friendship. That I wanted a travel buddy. What if I wanted a travel buddy? Or what if I just wanted a drinking buddy? But I found the opposite. If you go looking for a travel buddy and you're hanging out with your drinking buddy, making plans with that person is going to be a fucking nightmare. You might be the drinking buddy and someone's trying to make plans with you, and you are useless at making plans. How many of us are useless at making plans? I feel quite gifted in that department. I live and die by my calendar and my to-do list. Give me a date, give me a time, give me a place to be, give me a reason, and I'll be there, mate. It means that I don't have to think about it anymore. I love just setting the time. I love just setting the time. And so it was stressing me out. I had this project that I have to put out. And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about like getting the band together. We haven't rehearsed in so long. We have to learn all of these new songs. We have to book a time. We have to book a date when we can all actually do the gig itself. Which means I have to find that date when we're all free. And then I have to find a venue that will let us do it. And then we have to plan a bunch of rehearsals as well, leading up to that. And I was doing it in the sense of like, I want to give this project the energy that it deserves, because I actually truly love this project. I'm really proud of this project. I think it's fucking amazing. It's one of the best musical projects I think I've ever been part of. And that's pretty crazy for me to say. I struggle to listen back to old projects and to give them props, to give them compliments, to give myself compliments. And yet with this one, I listen back. Maybe it's because it involves so many other people, but this one I listen and I go, this is great. This is fucking sweet. And yet, the thought of actually putting that energy together to coordinate that level of a thing, and it is a lot to coordinate. If you've ever coordinated even just a hangout with a large group of mates, then you know planning an event sucks. Just locking in a date sucks. Locking in a date sucks, especially for musicians who are already playing, mind you. Musicians who are already busy on the weekends, who are already in other projects. It's just the way that it goes. And so I feel no bitterness towards any, musos necessarily that like struggle to lock in a date. I get it. I like locking in dates. I'm good at it. And I wish more people were good at that as well. It'd make my life a lot better. But everyone's brain works differently. Because when I put it into the calendar, then it's gone. Then I know it's going to happen then, and so I don't think about it for a little while. That's all I'm looking for. Whereas other people, I think, they fill in these dates that are super far in advance, and that just like stresses them out. They're like, oh my god, but that's so far in the future. I don't want to think about that. I get that. That's fine. It's then difficult for us two to work together. But I actually have no bitterness towards those two different mindsets. They're just two different mindsets. So I arrived at the conclusion that I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do an album launch. I'm not going to do an EP launch, rather, for this project. It deserves it. It deserves it, but I was losing sleep. I hadn't even locked in a date yet. I hadn't done anything yet. So the fact that I was already losing sleep, I decided, look, if that's the way it's going to be, it's the way it's going to be. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the batteries. Which sucks. It does suck, but also to beat yourself up about that, to be like, hey, You did a thing and you're not giving it the time it deserves? Look, I know, yes, it's not perfect, but it is what it is, mate. It still exists. The project still exists. So that's something, you know? How many people have just sat on things forever and never released it? So at least I've done that part. And it's going to be the death of me. It's going to be the reason that I wallow away and just like... If I get to the age of like 80 and I've never really made it, I think I will probably look back and go, well, you probably should have told people that you were doing stuff. I'll be like, yeah, no, that's fair enough. But at least I did stuff. I'm going to try and market it in other ways. I'm going to try and push it in other ways. I've got some radio play coming up this week. So that's a damn fine start. Damn fine start. I'll try and go onto Submit Hub. See what I can find on there. I got approved for one playlist. I've never been approved for any playlist before. That's fucking cool. Made me very happy. So I'll try and go down that route. But we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. So much of this podcast is just fighting against expectations that I suppose only myself am really holding myself to. However, always and forever, what is the two options? For the thing to exist or the thing not to exist? And I will always opt for the thing to exist, for the project to finish, for the project to come out. It does mean that chances are slim to none that you're going to get attention on your work if you don't push it. You have to push it. You actually have to market stuff. You actually have to, otherwise you're never going to get anywhere. The few people that actually get somewhere without really pushing their work, without quote unquote hustling, is so goddamn small. It is a lottery. And it's a lottery that continues to increase in odds. Increase in odds? The odds are against you, and they're worse and worse every day. And I know this sounds pessimistic, but that's kind of the center of this podcast, is that the odds are really low of any of this like going anywhere, in particular in terms of how we see art, you know, that it's not successful until it's big. And before that, you're just a starving artist. You're a failure. You're a failing artist because no one's listening to your shit, or no one's looking at your shit. You've never been in a gallery. You've never published a book. But it's so funny now that like those high watermarks no longer mean the same thing. I know I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I'll say it again, that like when people say, oh, I'm a published writer, even if they say they're self-published, but people can say that about the Vibe Union poetry books. Oh, I'm published in the Vibe Union poetry book. It's like, yeah, well, kind of anyone is. Like the people that are in there, they are all of our mates, so it's not like... I don't mean to take away from it, you know. I don't mean to take away from it. I want to give it as much credibility as it deserves, but at the same time, I don't want to overblow that it's just a little thing that we did. Anyone can be published, mate. Anyone can be published. I heard someone even kind of gleefully say, like, "Oh yeah, I'm what do you call it? I got the little blue check mark on Spotify. I'm verified. I'm a verified artist, mate." And I said, "Yeah, you paid for it, mate. I'm a verified artist. We're all verified artists. We're all verified by the powers that be, that is Spotify and DistroKid, the way that we get our music out there. I paid $15 and I was verified. Wowee." We're all out there. We're all published. There was an article that I just saw Anthony Fantano react to, saying that in one day in 2024, there was more music released than there was in the entirety of the year 1989. Which makes perfect sense. And as he pointed out, if that's the case for that year and the case for that day, that's the same every day. Every day there is more music released than there was in entire years. And so at a certain point, you are just a drop in the ocean, and you really have to market the fuck out of yourself to get out there. There are loads of ways of doing it. There are a lot of scams. I think a lot of it's scams. There's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of luck, there's a lot of scams. And so to then beat yourself up for not doing that side of things is like, well, mate, the odds were against you anyway. So maybe you should not stress too much. Maybe you should just focus on the thing, just doing the thing. Did you have fun doing it? Did you have fun making it? Are you still having fun making it? Have you started work on the next one? I'm asking you directly. Have you started the next project? Are you working on the next project? Not to make a statement, not to do anything in particular, just because you have that need to create something. You look at the blank page, you go, oh, yuck, I hate that blank page, I better fill it with something. I'm going to get rid of that right now. Oh, I hate to look at it, I can't stand it. God, I can't stand a blank page. Then put something down, mate. Then put something down. Odds are against you. The odds are also maybe in your favor in many regards. Because back in the day, it used to be, if you, the odds were that you weren't going to be able to do it at all. That's no longer the case. Take being a writer, or maybe take being a director of like large Hollywood films, or someone in the gaming industry. Anything that's like, involves hundreds, if not thousands of people, then yeah, you kind of have to hit a certain point before you can really be on that stage and work to that level, work with that many people to create the scale of work that you really truly want to do. And so if you didn't make it, and there was a roll of the dice as well back then, you had to hustle, you had to market yourself, I think just as you do now. But if you didn't succeed, you didn't get to do it. Now you get to do it. That's not a question. There is no question. For almost any of these creative practices that I ramble on about and I talk to all of you over a pint about is we can do it. The tools are available. The tools are available and the platforms are available. So now the only thing, if you fail, is you might not get the audience that you envisioned or that society told you might get one day. But that's fine. That's fine. Might suck, but it's fine. You still get to do it. And the doing it's the best play part. I'll speak briefly about platforms. Because I'm trialing a new social media platform. You might have seen that like Blue Sky has really taken off recently. It's a Twitter clone made by the old CEO of Twitter. But it's a Twitter clone through and through. It has some differences between Twitter and itself. Mainly that there's no algorithm. It's just random. On the like discover page, it's kind of just random shit. And then everything else is tailored to you. What are you following? It's just lists of the things that you're following, not we think you might like this, we think you might like this. I think there's a little bit, but nothing to the same degree as any of the other platforms that are all just completely algorithm dominated now. Which, when I switched to it, I was also a little bit curious. I was like, but the algorithm's interesting. The algorithm actually does like provide chances for discoverability for small artists, more so for certain platforms, I think. I find a lot of very small channels on YouTube getting recommended to me. Mostly music, but all kinds of shit. All kinds of very small little videos. Like, this video's got 100 views. You might like it. And I go, 100 views? Why are you suggesting to me this? I love that it's doing that. I have discovered some really cool niche little things because of it. But then at the same time, the interactions on Blue Sky seem to be massive. Like, you just get a lot more interactions from people that follow you than on these other platforms. And it got me thinking about respect for the user. And I think that plays a huge role for any creative that's putting their stuff out online. How much time do we spend like frustrated and fighting with these platforms that are like kind of our only way, or the only way that you're told that you're supposed to like market your stuff? This is how you get your stuff out, mate. And you spend a lot of time on there going, I don't understand how I'm supposed to use this. It keeps fighting me at every turn. And Instagram is the perfect example of that. I feel like Instagram really does not respect its users in any way. One thing I found recently was a quote. Was it a quote? It was a report that like several of these platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they don't really want you to click any links because that takes you off the platform. If your business model is ads, then when people leave your platform, they stop seeing ads, so you stop making money. And so it's in their best interest, as via the profit motive, to keep you on the platform as much as possible and to make sure that links do not get clicked. And I've kind of said this in a roundabout way about Instagram for a long time when people ask me, like, how do you get, like, I've had chats with local musos that I'm friends with, being like, how do you get people off how do you get people to click links on Instagram? And I usually say, you don't, mate. I don't click links on Instagram. It's a really shit platform for it. The fact that it opens up in a little web browser within Instagram is totally useless. It's really frustratingly non-user friendly. And I've always thought, like, why the fuck is that? And then hearing that about these platforms, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They don't want you to click links, especially like links to a music platform where you go and like listen to something for a little while. No, that's totally useless to Instagram. Whereas it seems on Blue Sky that is not the case. That links are like actually quite prioritized. I don't know how long that will last. As if the profit motive exists for them, which it has to, then that will as well become one day a liability to their bottom line. But for the time being, they seem to be respecting their users. And so there's a huge influx of artists, journalists, what have you, to Blue Sky, which seems really cool. But also just made me frustrated that, like, it's so deeply frustrating that we have this renaissance of creativity that we are in the midst of right now. And it's all it's thanks to the availability of tools, the availability of technology, and also the availability of these platforms. However, a lot of these platforms are also kind of deeply anti-creator. They are both pro-creator because you make the content, and then also anti-creator. They're like, no, but you have to do it just here in a way that makes people stay on our platform. However else you want to make stuff doesn't really work for us. We need them to stay here. So yeah, you can make your little podcast, but you better be fucking clipping it and putting it onto our reels, because otherwise it makes no sense for us to promote your podcast. It makes no sense for us to like boost or just like for our algorithm to prioritize a post or a story with a link in it. It doesn't make any sense. And to that I say, yeah, okay, I get it, but also fuck you. It makes it so that when I see another platform crop up like Blue Sky, I'm ready to jump ship. If I can find more interactions on there rather than Instagram, mate, I'm out. I'm so out. God, I hate Instagram. I still use it. It's my primary platform. I think it's everyone's primary platform, and I fucking hate it, especially as a musician. Totally useless as a musician. Like, genuinely, every musician that I know that is like kind of utilizing it effectively as a marketing tool pretty much just uses it for comedy. And then on the side, they're like, oh, by the way, I make music. It's like, okay, well, if you are funny and you enjoy doing that, fucking sweet. But at the same time, isn't that kind of stupid that that's what we have to do to market our music? You have to be a comedian. God, that really jumped all over the place with that stuff. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Take the pressure off yourself, mate. Make stuff, market it as much as you can with the tools that you've got access to. But also don't beat yourself up if that stops you making some stuff. Okay, that's my thoughts on my latest project that's coming out. And this first single is out. If you're listening to this and you want to go check it out, please do. Please check out Sticks and Stones by Wrath and Superstructure. That's all. That's the podcast. In the Back of My Head podcast, episode 71. I hope that you're well. I hope this has had any sort of value to you. I just needed to get some thoughts out of my head into a mic about, what the fuck am I doing? Be well, see you on the other side, mate.